Good morning and welcome to the Built Environment Innovation Masters Fund. My name is Kay Keenan and I will be your host today. I am also the Future Skills Manager at Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. The panellists that will be joining us today are Christopher Jan Wright, an Architecture and Interior Design graduate from the Mackintosh School at Glasgow School of Art, Kirsty Connell-Skinner, Project Manager at Edinburgh Napier University, Ali Davey, Project Manager of Traditional Materials at Historic Environment Scotland, Dr. Mohammed Al-Wahab, Senior Lecturer of the School of Engineering and Computing at the University of the West Coast of Scotland, and Joanna Glenfield from Equate. Thank you for joining us, panel. Before we start, I just want to go over some housekeeping today. A recording will be available after the session today on Construction Scotland Innovation Centre channels and will be sent out to all participants afterwards. We want your participation throughout, so if you want to ask a question, please click on questions in the control panel, type in your question and press send. We will try to answer as many as we can. There'll be a couple of poll questions running throughout the session as well. Please do answer them because your feedback and opinion are extremely valuable to us. We have a few videos to share today during today's webinar as well. So if you're struggling to hear them, could you please check that your audio options are open on your computer and not your phone. If you have a monitor plugged into your laptop, you may have to disconnect the second screen in order to hear too. So we're going to show you the launch of the Built Environment Innovation Masters Fund. Thank you. So we're going to launch our first poll for the session. So the first question is, what specific area of the Built Environment Innovation Fund relates to you? Are you a student? Do you work within industry? Are you academic, or are you from another area? So please answer just now. And it's came back, 76% of you are students. So hopefully your potential students who are interested in applying for the fund this year. We have 12% from industry, 6% from academic. So that's quite overwhelming, showing that most of you today are students. What we're going to do now is we're going to show you a video from a former student who actually was part of the scholarship fund a few years ago. Her name is Carola Caglona, and she is an architectural engineer and technologist and former student of the programme and from Edinburgh Napier University.
Hi, my name is Carola Calcagno. I'm an architectural engineer and technologist, and thanks to CSIC program, I was awarded a scholarship for a Master in Architecture Technology and Building Performance at Edinburgh Napier University for the academic year 2017-2018. Among the benefits that this program can bring to students, there is the chance to work with an industry partner which in my case, for example, was really useful for my final assessment, since I could assist at the manufacturing process of the construction material I was using for the design of my final project. Working with an industry partner also helped me understand a bit more how the construction industry works, and I feel like it also improved my attention to detail and communication skills. When I finished my master, I was offered a position as research assistant at Edinburgh Napier University, which I covered for 1.5 years. I recently moved into industry and now I'm working as a design technologist at Intelligent Wood Systems. To future participants, I would suggest taking the opportunity to participate in this program and as well all the opportunities that the program itself can give you. This is the best moment to collect as many inputs as possible so you can understand what you really like and make more informed decisions for your future.
Thank you. And now I want to introduce you to our first panelist today, and it's Jan Wright. Jan was a former student of the programme. Thanks for joining us today, Jan.
Hi, no, thank you for having me.
First of all, I want to congratulate you. I believe you've just recently graduated from the Macintosh School with a Master's and a distinction.
Yes, I did, yes, thank you.
So first of all, Jan, you engaged with the programme last year. Can you tell us more about the course that you did?
Yeah, so I studied on the MArch in Architectural Studies programme at GSA, which is like a 1-year Masters in Architecture, but I did the Creative Urban Practices pathway. So I kind of describe it as it almost situates between fine art and architecture. So you're looking at architectural theory, but through the lens of like allied practices such as interior design or fine art or photography. So it kind of brings a different perspective to architectural discourse. And we were looking at like the contemporary issues in and around architecture, space and place. So that was kind of the course summed up in a way.
Okay, and how much would you say the funding helped you, not just with your education, but also with the industry partner that you had?
So yeah, it helped considerably. Like I think, like I said there, because I was operating so close to almost a fine art discipline, it kind of gave, well, I could have stayed very conceptual and in the realm of concept with the whole project. So I think it added like a commercial awareness and a practical ambition to the project. So, and I think that was really useful in terms of like developing the project further after university, which I'll probably talk about a bit later on. But in terms of the industry partner and the sport, I think that was one of the greatest assets of the program. It kind of encourages you to find an industry partner. And I was really lucky. I worked with Bell Architects, which was an architecture firm in Northern Ireland. And throughout the whole year, I was having Zoom calls and things like that with Murray Bell, the lead architect. And he introduced me to loads of the projects, the community projects they worked on. And they became great case studies for my projects, and then that kind of really helped me develop like a dynamic proposal, which wasn't like, it kind of anchored it in the real world in a way. So I think that was what was really useful.
So what would you say to students who have joined us today in the webinar if they are thinking about applying to the programme?
So I think I'd probably go back to when I was applying back in January, and I was actually quite skeptical about applying because I didn't think my project directly linked to construction. I thought it was quite a tangible link. My tutor encouraged me to apply because I think even when I was looking at the case studies, none of them, well, my research project didn't look like any of the other ones. So I was like, oh, maybe it won't fit. But I think that's why I'd encourage people to apply, because I think the CSIC kind of encourages you to do a unique body of research that's totally relevant to you. And it gives you a lot of freedom in that way. And then, like I just said there with the industry partner, I think in terms of getting contacts, it's so useful. So obviously with the industry, but then with yourselves at CSIC, and then even with panelists like there are today. So I think that's what's really useful. And I definitely encourage people to take that opportunity.
Yeah. Could you tell us more about the project that you worked on, that you did with Bell Architects, and what it was about?
Yeah, so I was looking at the right to the city and the fact that at the moment, in order to kind of have a proper right to the city and the right to the space you have, it's almost you want to be able to use it to your own desire in a way. And often times space is designed ex situ by people that aren't talking to the community, listening to their needs and stuff like that. And so often community spaces become secondary derelict spaces because they don't listen to the communities there for, etc. So I think it was about trying to engage them in the ideation process, kind of making a space that they genuinely feel they can use is for them, and it kind of gives them kind of agency in that way. So that's what I was doing. And also re-engaging interest in lost and forgotten space in the city. So Glasgow, like many cities in Scotland, are peppered with all these kind of leftover derelict spaces, and so it's trying to paint them a bit more colourfully in a way. So yeah.
Great, that's really, really interesting. So construction is changing, and why is it that you want to move into the construction and built environment sector? What is it that excites you about it, Jan?
So I think even for myself, there's almost a preconceived notion that the construction industry is just about building, whereas in actual fact it's like such a multidisciplinary system with like services, systems, organizations, etc. I think it pulls on so many different voices from so many different areas, so it kind of offers such an interesting opportunity for so many different future careers. And then also I think for me, because my project was quite a lot about sustainability, I think the industry is becoming a lot more ecologically conscious as well. And I think that's not just in like materials, but also in how systems and services run, they're becoming more sustainable. I think because the construction industry is shaping the physical environment we live in, I think it's so important. I think we've realized recently that environment is actually quite delicate. And so we need to be more conscious of our environmental footprint. So being part of that next wave, I think is quite exciting. So yeah.
Okay. So can you tell us about what you're doing now? What's your next move? What are you planning to do for the future?
So it's all gone a bit up in the air, not exactly gone to plan. I had in like a graduate role lined up for a nice design, architecture and design company in London before lockdown started, but because of the kind of weird situation, they unfortunately put a hold on recruiting, and so retracted that offer. So I'm currently looking for a graduate role within interior design, architecture and construction. But I think one thing that over lockdown and like graduating into like this new climate, I kind of realized that maybe I can do something that I didn't think I originally could do. If I'm going to do something spontaneous and make a difference and do something that's slightly not down the path I originally thought, it's probably the time to do it. So I'm actually working with Unlimited, which is like a social, an organization that kind of pulls together social entrepreneurs, and they kind of are helping me try to win some funding and also to like develop a smaller version of the project that I was doing for my master's research in Dundee with a local community group. So hopefully that'll get some traction in the next few months, and so that's what I'm working on at the moment.
We wish you the very best of luck in the future with it, Jan, because it sounds really, really fascinating. So yeah, congratulations on all the work that you did in the past year as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you as well for all the support and everything going through.
Thank you. Thanks. So now we're going to move on to our second poll questions. So please, if you get involved. So which area of the built environment do you work or study in? Is it construction, engineering, digital, environmental, or other? Okay, and the results have come in that, wow, so 36% are actually from other, and that's the most. So I suppose what that shows, if it's students who are on today, is we have people from other areas that are interested in the fund that are on today, which is interesting and actually a good sign, and 23% from engineering and construction. So very interesting. So now we're going to hear from Joanna. Joanna is a project officer from Equate, and she's going to tell us more about the work that they do on equality and diversity within the sector.
So good morning everybody. As Kay said, my name is Joanna Glenfield and I'm a project officer at Equate Scotland. I'm delighted to be part of the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre MSE Programme Fund launch webinar this morning. For those of you who do not know what Equate does or who we are, Equate is Scotland's national expert for anything related to gender equality in science, technology, engineering, maths and the built environment. For over 10 years, we've been working to increase the participation of women in STEM by working with industry and academia to help them attract, recruit and retain women in STEM fields, as well as actively working to change culture within organisations. But we also support women studying STEM and women working in STEM through a range of free services to help women get in, get on, get back and get to the top in STEM. So why does the work at Equate matter? Because currently only 30% of women STEM graduates go on to work in the sector they qualified in. That's a 70% leak in the talent pipeline and a huge loss of STEM talent for Scotland's STEM industries. But why is this an issue? Because STEM industries are vital to Scotland's economic success and the majority of jobs in the future are going to require some STEM skills. By 2030, 42% of the working population will be over the age of 65, and currently women make up around half of the UK workforce, but are still significantly underrepresented in STEM, where only 24% of the STEM workforce are female. And you'll see there for the figures for the STEM sectors, in terms of ICT, only 23% of the STEM workforce are women, and in engineering, only 11% of the workforce are women. But in terms of diversity in construction, there's an extreme gender imbalance in the construction sector. Currently, only 1% of construction and building trades roles are done by women, and only 15% of architects, town planners and surveyors are done by women. And figures for 2017 show that women made up less than 2% of modern apprenticeships in the construction industry. Now, the construction sector faces a significant skills challenge because within the next 7 years or so, 30,000 of its current workforce are due to retire. In addition, it's been reported that a further 7,000 construction managers and tradespeople are required in the next few years. So as this workforce ages and as people retire, the skills gap within the sector is only going to increase. But why does diversity matter? So there's many business benefits to having a diverse workforce now, whether that be gender, religion, race, sexual orientation, disability or age. Diversity gives you access to a greater range of talent and it's good for business. So research makes it increasingly clear that gender diverse companies are more successful and 15% more likely to financially outperform those who are not, particularly if there's gender diversity in executive teams and leadership roles. On average, companies with the highest number of women directors outperform those who don't by around 53%. And in ethnically diverse companies are more likely to 30% financially outperform those that are not. So companies with a diverse workforce understand their customer needs and expectations better. They make better decisions, they design and produce better products and services, which leads to greater employee satisfaction because employees feel included, which then enables you to attract and retain top talent. So diversity is a source of competitive advantage and a key enabler of growth. But in terms of build back better, so the COVID-19 crisis is the focus of Scotland's labour market and policy making at the moment. And the construction sector is at the heart of the economic recovery. And it's vital that we seize this opportunity to build back better now. So the Scottish Construction Industry Recovery Plan and latest announcements from UK and Scottish Government, the Programme for Government, have set out the need to reset the economy. And part of this includes the transformation in how the construction sector operates, both in terms of the green agenda and women's equality. So recently the UK Government announced a £3 billion package to improve energy efficiency in existing buildings, £1 billion of which will be used on public sector buildings and social housing retrofit. And Scottish Government have just announced £100 million towards the Green Jobs Fund, further details of which are about to be released. So in terms of the Green Agenda, changes in how the construction sector operates will contribute significantly towards achieving Scotland's net zero emissions by 2045. And this will be delivered in terms of the adoption of new technology and the better integration of supply chains, the use of low carbon materials, and reduction in transport-related emissions through new methods like off-site construction. In terms of skills in the workforce, one of the major challenges that the sector faces is ensuring there's a sufficient talent pipeline of people with the skills required for the future, which includes a digitalised industry and a range and scale of construction activities required to meet the Green Agenda. There's a key focus on young people in apprenticeships and getting them back into learning and work, and also maintaining opportunities for graduates to enter and progress in the sector. But it's also important that we look at culture change and how we attract more women to the sector. So there's some really great opportunities and things happening in the sector as it sets up to restructure, reducing carbon emissions, and contributing towards achieving the net zero ambitions. So tomorrow's built environment is definitely one of the most exciting places to consider a career in, and there'll be some significant opportunities arising in the future for those looking to build a career in construction. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanna. And we're hoping during the discussion we have lots of questions and discussion around that area, particularly around the Green Agenda and a more diverse workforce. So before we move over to our Q&A session, I'm going to introduce the third poll for the session today, and that is, how can we create a more diverse workforce within Scotland's built environment? And if you look, you can see the three areas that we're looking at. Okay, and the answer have come in, and overwhelmingly 58% has said the culture change is needed within the sector, and then we've got widening the talent pool with funds like this one, and also targeting more diversity within school, and they're quite equal. Okay, so that's very interesting. Your participation today is welcome, so please, if you want to answer a question, if you want us to answer a question, can you please put your questions up on the poll over in the corner, and I'll just get started with questions while we wait for participants to ask. So my first question is directed towards Kirsty. Now, Kirsty, you're someone who works with students at Edinburgh Napier University. What would you say, Kirsty, are the main benefits of applying to the Innovation Fund, and who are the type of people that should apply?
Thanks very much, Kay. It's a really good question. I think one of the things that comes across really strongly, and you obviously all saw Carola earlier through the video. She's one of our Edinburgh Napier students who's benefited from the Innovation Centre Scholarship. I think one of the things that really comes across is that it helps you drive your focus early as a student, because you have to get organised, you have to have a good idea about how you want to engage with industry, how you want to use the opportunity of the scholarship. And I think that really does give a bit of a head start in your own studies. So I think even if you're not successful, and I hope a lot of the audience will be successful in getting a scholarship, I think even having the time to sort of go through the application process and really think about what you want to achieve out of it should also be helpful regardless. I think in a sort of a broader sense, I think the real benefits of the programme is very much increasing diversity. I mean, doing a master's is a big financial commitment if that's, you're getting into debt or you're having to find the money to pay for it up front. And of course, wealth has no monopoly on intelligence. And, if we really do want to diversify our sector, we need to get the best and brightest into those sort of senior master's sort of training. So a scholarship for that, being blunt, the money for that is incredibly helpful at making sure no one's getting left behind. I think also one of the other great benefits is it really does help build momentum. You know, if you're a student who's got the backing of the Innovation Centre at the start of your master's degree, and you know you've got the opportunity to work with industry, you've got the opportunity to engage in new thinking and the innovation that's coming across the sector now, there's a great opportunity there to then leverage further funding to make the connections that you need to find that, you know, the role in industry afterwards, or you know, to maybe pursue your studies at PhD level, depending on what your interest is. And you know, you've seen that from what Jan was saying about the multidisciplinary sort of aspect of it that is obviously becoming a lot clearer across the sector. In terms of who should apply, all that said, I think you really have to be, and really prove you have to be, someone who wants a bit more than just getting your fees paid. You know, this is a fantastic opportunity, you know, not just to learn, but to really engage with the sector and with industry. So I think the student themselves has to be someone who's really willing to engage and to get the most out of it, and not just see it as a check and a door opening, but to really maximise the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the industry partner engagement is such an important part of the programme, and it does require the student to really, you know, move outside what they would normally do in a master's and show a certain degree of initiative, which in the long run will be really good for them when they move on into the workplace as well. So yeah, absolutely, Kirsty, I agree. Ali, Historic Environment Scotland this year are very much on board as industry partners, and you have lots of really, really good potential industry projects for the applicants. So can you tell me more about the projects and HESA's involvement on the programme?
Sure. Hi, everyone. For anyone that's not familiar with Historic Environment Scotland, we're the lead public body set up to investigate, care for and promote Scotland's historic environment. So most people would probably be familiar with our front-facing operations. We run the likes of Edinburgh Castle and Stirling Castle and Skara Brae. So we've got all the stonemasons, the architects, the engineers, the plumbers, the electricians that look after those buildings. But behind that front-facing operation, we do an awful lot more. And Kay and I were talking about this a few days ago. You know, when you think of heritage, you wouldn't really associate the word innovation with heritage. But actually, innovation and emerging technology has so much to offer the heritage sector. You know, Joanna was talking about the need to ensure we have the talent in place for the future, and we've learned in the heritage sector to our detriment that if you don't look after the skills and make sure you have the skills in place for the future, you're going to be in trouble. So we have, for example, a science team, we have a digital documentation team, a climate change team. So there's so much work to be done in all of these areas. And promoting skills has always been a huge part of what we do, and it benefits not just us, it helps us improve our knowledge and gives us more knowledge to disseminate to the wider sector, but it helps give young professionals a kickstart to their career and bring what they've learned as part of our support to the wider sector, because it's not just our organisation that we want to benefit from it. We want the wider sector to benefit from this knowledge as well. So we've a huge range of opportunities. For example, we work closely with the British Geological Survey. We have a collaborative partnership with them and do various projects to advance our knowledge and the wider knowledge around building stones, the availability and related technology. So something we're really hoping to do this year through this scheme is advance our understanding of carbon calculation around stone. A big push for us is around sustainable procurement. Obviously, energy efficiency, climate change mitigation is a huge issue at the moment, and traditional buildings across Scotland, not just Edinburgh Castle, but our schools, all of the public buildings around us and our homes, traditionally constructed homes, have a part to play in that. So we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of all the emerging technology to help us improve the energy efficiency. So we are looking for partners or students who would be interested in working with us, working with academic partners to advance our knowledge in these areas. So I'll just run through some of the potential topics that we've highlighted. So with our science team, for example, we have things like doing research around baseline colour and texture characterisation for Scottish slate, ultrasound technology, which would aid in conserving stone. We've got our digital documentation team who work very closely with a number of academic partners. So they have been heavily involved in research around extending artificial intelligence research, which does things like automatic segmentation of building facades, modelling and visualisation of climate change impacts, and the potential for renewable energies, development of building information management libraries for historic buildings. The list goes on. A huge part of what we want to make sure is that particularly for retrofitting traditional buildings for energy efficiency, we need to make sure that any new technology that's applied to old buildings doesn't damage them and actually make your buildings more damp and damage them. So a lot of work around that. Energy calculations for refurbished buildings, baseline energy use for traditional building types, investigating the use of marine materials. So there's lots of ways that we can maybe be more efficient and reduce waste by utilizing waste materials. Things like, for example, oyster shells from the oyster industry. We are looking at how you might utilize the waste from that industry to create lime for mortars. Analysis of building at risk data and demolitions. There's all sorts of stuff. There's more on the list, but I don't want to hog the time. But there's so much that we could work with a student on, and it would be a tremendous opportunity for the student, a great learning opportunity for them. But it would bring so much to us and the wider industry. That's the beauty of this scheme, is that, you know, it's a mutually beneficial thing that can really help us advance our knowledge. And there's so many different areas that people can get involved when it comes to heritage. It's not just kind of Edinburgh Castle. So
yeah, absolutely, Ali, and thank you for that. I think that, you know, for the students that are on the webinar today, what they can see is the absolute breadth of different areas that Historic Environment Scotland has to offer for potential students. And you can see, you know, from energy efficiency to climate change to retrofit, there's so much out there that, you know, it is a great opportunity for students to get a chance to work in their masters with an industry partner such as yourself. So it's a really exciting opportunity. Thanks. So Mohammed, you know, you're someone who's very much, you know, leading the way in terms of innovation and digitisation in Scotland at the moment. Why would you say it's so important to encourage the students in this programme to work or be involved in projects related in this area?
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks, Kay, for your kind invitation to contribute to this panel discussion. I won't go as far as saying I'm leading the way, but I'm trying to do my bit. Yeah. So just basically, I mean, in terms of the question, in terms of why digitalization is really an important topic. But first of all, we need to understand what they mean by digitization. So obviously, digitization or embracing digital technologies is about using two technologies such as laser scanning, which I mean Ali referred to in terms of digital documentation, which Historic Environment Scotland are doing a lot of work in that respect. And one of their landmark projects is the Scottish 10, which they're working on. And also it's about using virtual reality, augmented reality, machine learning, autonomous construction systems like 3D printing and robotics. So all these are the range of technologies, which is often people say digitization or digital technologies. So these are the range of digital technologies that could be applied. I think the easy part is to say, okay, let's do a laser scan of this building. But the big challenge is how we can actually embed this in terms of enhancing existing workflows within the organization. A lot of companies, they say, okay, let's go and do a laser scan, and they're just sitting on the data and not quite sure what to do with it. And that's why I think it's a fantastic opportunity to have the Innovation Fund, because this is an opportunity for students to see how we can actually work with the data to enhance existing workflows within the organization. So in terms of the benefits of working on digitization, I mean, the poll which Kay put up earlier, 0% of students are working in digital transformation areas. So this is a really new and developing and evolving area. So it's really important for students to try and embrace this new topic. And it's more about, I mean, make no mistake, it's learning for everyone involved. If you have an industry partner, they're actually learning because the technology is new to them. And the student is also learning. Innovation Center is learning. I learn all the time because technology is changing all the time. So we need to update our knowledge and so on. I mean, just to give you an example, like I do a lot of work with the virtual reality, and so one of the headsets that we work with is HTC Vive. So I wouldn't be exaggerating, like every couple of months, they push out new kit in the market. Like this summer, they were pushing out a VR kit with an eye tracking technology. So all these sort of new and evolving technology, as I think Kay and other speakers alluded to, there is now push more to having game developers working in construction, data analysts working in construction, animators working in construction. So the industry phase is really evolving. So I think this is really fantastic opportunities for students to learn within the organization and join their learning journey. And so in terms of the benefits, is enhancing your learning experience, and also in terms of your own personal development. I think, as Jan was saying at the very beginning, that you liaise with different industry partners, with academia, so you really develop your personal skills and your soft skills, and also you have enhanced your learning experience because your learning is more applied. It's not purely academic, you see it actually in practice. So this is really another benefit. And the last benefit, I would say, which is really important, I mean, given now we're talking about COVID and so on, and I think we are now undergoing a lot of change in the economy. So in terms of, this could be a good opportunity for you to identify new career opportunities for yourself. And it's all about your level of ambition. I know students who did their master's project and they went on to have their own startup company. Why not? Your ambition, depending on how your level of ambition, but also you need to obviously have a lot of learning involved and so on. You need to have a can-do attitude and the rest of it. And also in terms of you mentioned in terms of career development, so career opportunities, you can, as far as you can go in terms of having your startup company, this may be at the higher end of the scale. I think one of the students mentioned in her video, your company maybe want to employ you to work with them, so you can secure employment with them. And the last point which we're going to finish with in terms of the idea of reverse mentoring. So obviously people think, oh, you work in an industry. Make no mistakes, industry are learning as well, you as learning. So reverse mentoring, they'll be looking at you to actually learn from you. To give you an example, a few years ago, one of my students, he was working in terms of BIM and 3D modeling and so on. And when he first joined the graduate program of one of the companies, without mentioning their names, they said that they automatically progressed to become like the team leader of BIM within the organization, because you are actually creating a niche skills which you have, and everyone is talking about it. But I must say, not many people are doing about it. So a lot of people are talking about it, but not too many people are doing something about it. So I think you can create your edge and niche in terms of competitive edge when you're trying to progress your career in terms of developing your new set of skills. And I'll just stop there.
No, absolutely, Mohammed. Really, really fascinating, particularly the idea that the opportunities that this can, it's not about, as Kirsty had said earlier, it's not about getting your fees paid. It's about the opportunities of learning new skills. It's about having that confidence to work with industry and, you know, being brave and, you know, embracing new technologies that are out there. You know, I think one of the problems in the sector is a lot of people who've been in it for a long time have that fear, whereas if you're just moving into the sector, you are fearless. And I think, you know, when we were looking at Jan and Carola, and we can see that former students, the things that they're going to move on and do, that will be the future. And that's what the whole point of this fund is. So yeah, absolutely. So those of you who are out there watching this today, I hope that does inspire you to apply and get involved. So we've got a question now coming in for Jan. Let's see. So Jan, it's asking you, did your masters prepare you for the Scottish labour market? Now, I suppose Scottish labour market at the moment is not probably what the Scottish labour market was like last year. So it is a very different Scottish labour market. But how did getting the masters prepare you for it? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry.
No
I
problem.
think in terms of that, it's actually introducing what is the people it's introduced me to. So working with my industry partner introduced me to people in Postle Park, and that's where the project was based, and that's introduced me to community connectors, and through that, that's introduced me to small local groups as well, which I've been able to break into, and that's kind of like become a segue for me going and doing a project that's based in Dundee as well. And so it's actually just that kind of network that it's introduced me to. So it kind of softens that step of like that progression. So something that initially seemed quite broad, that I've actually been able to break down in that way. So I think that's probably how it's introduced me to that kind of labour market in that respect. I don't know.
Okay, great stuff. And we've got another question coming in. How do you apply and when will you find out if you're successful? So we have a web platform on the CSIC webpage, which is devoted to the Built Environment Innovation Masters Fund. So if you go on there, there's an application, and the applications close at the end of September, and people will find out, whether they've been successful or not, around about mid-October. People are asking, where can we find the list of topics from Historic Environment Scotland? Well, once people are successful, what we're planning and doing is having our full list of industry partners and their topics collated together, so that the students on the project can actually, see which ones actually suit their masters and their areas of interest. So another question we've got is coming in about if you are from industry and how do you get involved? If you are if you're working in industry and you want to be involved in the programme and you want to do some work with a student, first port of call would be to contact myself, and we can look at the various courses which are involved in the programme, and then we can see which ones are suited. But like Mohammed and Kirsty had mentioned earlier, and Ali was talking about, there's a huge amount of flexibility when we talk about innovation. So don't be afraid when you're applying of thinking that your first degree isn't suited to working within innovation or technology. There's huge scope there for people from other areas to apply as well. So another question coming in. Okay, so someone has asked, are the projects or the topics from industry partners predefined, or can a candidate propose their own industry partner? Yeah, in the past we've actually had students who actually came in on their course and they already knew an industry partner that they wanted to work with. So if there's a potential student out there who's interested in applying but knows of an industry partner that they could work with, that's something that they can bring as well. So yeah, absolutely, they can do that. So let's see. So I think we don't have much time left for any more questions. So we're going to open up to our final poll for the day. So the last poll is, which areas we touched on today are you most interested in? So which areas that we touched on today are we most interested in? Is it the student experience, equality and diversity, digitisation, or industry partners? Okay, and it's come in, wow, so 55% have come in to say that they're actually interested in industry partners, with equal 20% for the student experience and digitisation. So that's quite a good mix that we've got there. So let's see, we've still got some time for more questions. So let's see, another question has come in asking, does it apply to part-time students? So yes, the fund does apply to part-time students. So if you're doing a part-time master's, it is something that you could apply to. The funds though are purely for your fees. It can't go back to your industry partner. So that's something that's set in stone. So if you're applying and you're doing a part-time study through maybe your employer, it wouldn't necessarily be the right pathway for you. So we've got another question coming in. Awesome. So we've got people saying that they're very much interested in working with diversity and inclusion. So Joanna, if we've got people who are maybe thinking about applying and they're coming from a sort of human resource management background, but they're wanting to apply for this fund, can you give them some idea of what kind of partnerships they could be doing within the sector, within the built environment or construction?
So I think one of the major issues is culture change within the sector, as came about as one of your polls as well. So I think in terms of actually changing the diversity of the sector, it is about culture. So for us, it would be something that actually looks at culture within the organisations. That could be in terms of the recruitment practices and unconscious bias, job adverts, gender neutral adverts. It's about where you advertise your job vacancies, putting in new policies that attract women, so like flexible working and maternity policies. These aren't prevalent in the sector right now, so a lot of you know, if you're working on site, you have to be there early in the morning, and as we know, most women are the carers within the family, so to be on site at 7 o'clock in the morning is not feasible. So opportunities like off-site construction really present opportunities to bring women in, and also digitalisation. You know, in terms of the responses to the students, which sectors they were in, it was 0 for digital. So there's some real opportunities there to work to build that talent pipeline, digital students coming into the sector as well. But it's very much about culture, changing the perception of the industry and changing the policies and the procedures so that it's attractive to women to work in the sector. And I would say they're the types of projects that you should be looking at. Who would be interested in that? I'm not quite sure. A lot of the organisations know that they need to do something, but it doesn't seem to be a priority for a lot of organisations right now. And during COVID, as we talk about building back better, it's really vital that we do something about it now and use this opportunity to build back better. But it would be a great idea for an MSc project fund. It would be interesting to see who would be interested in partnering to do that kind of project and maybe lead the way, set a precedent.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also worth mentioning, because some of the, you know, some people are asking the questions about industry partners and how do they get involved. If you are, you know, someone who is wanting to get involved in this, and you're maybe just a small SME or an organisation that hasn't been involved in something like this in the past, you know, it's not just looking at, you know, areas, particular construction areas. You can be looking at things like project, you know, human resources and how to change systems within your operations. All these things can work towards, you know, producing a leaner, more efficient workforce. So these are, you know, you can actually think outside the box when you're thinking about, you know, particular areas of innovation. So innovation can span all across, you know, these areas. So, you know, there is flexibility when we're looking at potential, you know, projects to work with. It doesn't necessarily have to be your typical construction built environment projects. So more questions coming in. So how many, so I think this is a potential student. Someone has asked, how many scholarships will be given out this year? So this year we have 20 spaces, and what we're going to do at the end of September, the applications will close, and then we'll go through the application process, and there'll be 20 people that will be offered a place, but there'll also be a holding list, because obviously it all relies on whether or not that person's been accepted onto their master's programme. So after that, there will be interviews that will take place. So if you're on the webinar today and you've applied for it and you're thinking about next steps, one of the things that I would say to you would be start thinking about what it is you want to do in this master's programme in terms of innovation. What kind of industry partner do you want to work with? You know, don't necessarily wait to see what we have, show your initiative. Actually think about, I mean, it's not just about, as we've mentioned, a master's with fees paid. It's about doing something, you know, really, you know, forward thinking. Like Jan had mentioned before, you know, working with brownfield sites in Postle Park in Glasgow, you know, looking at social spaces, you know, taking things, bringing in social enterprise, you know, be bold and be ambitious. when you're looking at your, you know, potential projects.
Can I just come in on that, Kay?
Yep.
Just to add, I think there was a question earlier about the opportunity to work directly with industry partners, and I think, you know, obviously we're in a sort of strange new world where, you know, working face to face is incredibly challenging for a lot of companies right now. But one of the things we've had a great success in the summer is we have at Edinburgh Napier, we have another programme called the Built Environment Exchange, which is for undergraduates. And a different scholarship scheme, but we were able to place one of our scholars with Stora Enso, and the scholar completed her internship remotely. So again, about showing your own initiative, if it's not something that you traditionally thought would have to be hands-on and now can't go work for that company, I think it's still definitely worth exploring whether it can be done remotely or digitally, what you're seeking out to achieve. And certainly in Napier, we've had experience of having that conversation with industry, and if we need support in that, that's something we can do as well.
Great, thanks, Kirsty. Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose there's lots and lots of different areas where support is, you know, as you said, you know, there is support out there, and, you know, we're all kind of in this very strange situation at the moment where we do have to figure out ways of making it work. So last question. So someone has said, can you undertake a MSc with any university in Scotland? Yeah, this is a question that comes up quite a lot. So if you're applying for a master's at a university in Scotland, one of the things that you have to make sure, the fees that we say we'll pay is up to the amount of £6,530. So if you're applying to a university where the fees are slightly more than that, you must actually speak to the programme leader to make sure that they'll actually waive the fees. So unfortunately, as a student, you can't top up that difference yourself. It must be the university that comes to some sort of agreement. So that is quite important at the moment. So where your fees are over that amount, that's something that you would have to speak to the programme leader about. So I think that's us now, but to wrap it up. So thank you, panellists, for a great discussion and for all the presentations today. It's been really, really, you know, great to hear of all your areas of expertise and all the areas which, you know, the students can benefit from in this innovation fund. Thanks to the audience for joining and for giving us the important questions. Again, thank you to the panel for sharing their thoughts and insightful discussion. Just to let you know that there's been a lot of questions, so if we haven't been able to answer them, please get in touch and we can follow up. And also we will provide the links that we spoke about earlier for the application form and for the web page that has all the information about the Built Environment Innovation Masters Fund. But thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you do apply, or if you're an industry partner, we hope you get involved. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks.